And y'all, this is the only thing we can do for God. This is the only thing we can do for God. It's when he whispers to us to say yes. That's how humbling it is. The only thing we can do is when he whispers. And God doesn't yell. I was reading a verse the other day, said there was a great earthquake, and then there was a great fire, and then there was a still, quiet voice. That's God. That's the still, quiet voice. God doesn't yell. That's why he tells you, be still and know. When I think about the Holy Spirit, I had somebody describe the Holy Spirit to me one time. Is the Holy Spirit's kind of timid and doesn't say a whole lot. The Holy Spirit just always points to Jesus. It's like, so when the Spirit's talking to you about something, he's like, that's what he does to me. And so I said yes. I had no training. I'd been in a small group for years, but these are homeless guys. And I will tell you this about homeless people. Once you start learning their stories and they become somebody's son and somebody's brother and somebody's dad, the way you look at them totally changes. So I started leading this group, and in a tip of the hat to Chick-fil-A, I had to buy chicken biscuits just to get them to come. They wouldn't come unless I had chicken biscuits. So I had 12 guys, started with me and 12 guys. And they didn't really participate. They didn't talk a lot. So I was trying to think of questions for them. And one of my early questions, I said to them, what is the Bible? And one of the guys said, it's just a book of rules. And I'm thinking, no, it's the greatest love story that's ever been written. So he said, it's a book of rules. And my buddy that was sitting there with me, he goes, really? He said, it's a book of rules. And he picked up his Bible, and there was a trash can there, and he dropped it in there. He said, if it's a book of rules, would that bother you? And one of the guys, the guy in the class that I was scared to death of, big, huge guy named Wayne, got up, walked over, and he pulled that thing out of the trash can, and he wiped it off. And he said, don't ever do that again. I said, well, Wayne, if it's a book of rules, why does that bother you so much? And Wayne said, let me tell you a story. He said, when my mother died, he said, I inherited $70,000 from an insurance policy. He said, I'd never had money in my life. He said, and I lost my mind. He said, we started buying crack. I got 2 girlfriends, and we started partying all day long. He said, and when you're partying like that, you don't go to work. So I got fired about a week later. He said, but we didn't care. We had money and we were partying. And he said, 2 months later, I got evicted out of my apartment. He said, so I had my stuff in some suitcases and backpacks. He said, and we just moved to cheap hotels, and we're partying day and night. He said, but as we're moving around, I'm losing my stuff piece by piece. And he said, the only thing that I had from my mother was a Bible that she gave me when I was a little kid. And on the front page on the inside, she had written this love letter to me, telling me about how Jesus was the answer. He said, and as we're bouncing around, I realized I've lost the backpack that had that Bible in it. He said, this goes on for a few more months, and then the money runs out. He said, next day, the 2 girlfriends leave. And now I don't have an apartment. I don't have a job. I've got a crack habit, and I'm on the street. He said, I'm on the street for a year and a half, living on the street, begging people for money, still got my crack habit. He said, and this guy came by one day, and he picked 2 of us, said he needed help with a project. Wayne being a big, strong guy, he picked Wayne and another guy, and he took them to a place about 100 miles away where this guy had bought an old apartment building, 2-story apartment building. He was cleaning it out. He was going to refurbish it and rent the apartments. So Wayne said, I started on the bottom. My buddy started on the top. He said, I got all my stuff cleaned up, bagged up, and put it in the dumpster. He said, and I went upstairs to help my buddy, and he was down to the last room. He said, but out in the hall, he had a pile of stuff in the corner. I'm like, dude, you want me to bag that stuff up? And the guy said, well, those are things I found that might be worth something if you want to look through it before we bag it up. And Wayne said he went over there and started looking through the stuff, and he reaches down in the dust and the dirt, and he pulls the book out, and he opens it up, and there's the love letter from his mom. It's his Bible. A year later, year and a half later, and 100 miles away. And he said, I collapsed to the floor and started sobbing. If you put that in a Hollywood movie, nobody would believe it. And he said, I figured if God was going to chase me that hard, I would finally quit running. But y'all, that's the God we serve. That's how much he loves us. And I just want to encourage y'all to be bold.